Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Chase Thomas podcast from still the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee, Everything School HQ. Joining me down there in Decatur, Georgia, my good friend, fellow University of North Georgia alumni, and the co-host of the Georgia Voice of College Football. It's Matt Green. Matt, good evening, sir. How are you?
Good evening, sir. It is good to be back with you, like we are every week, man. Talking college football. Well, we're like 50-something days away. 54, I think, if my math serves me correct.
We're close, man. August 30th will be here before you know it. I mean, you can obviously talk about week 0. I don't know. I still don't count week 0 as the first week of college football.
I'll count it if there's a good game, but
still no, it doesn't feel like it because I look at it as a vibe thing. Like, the first week of college football. That does not feel like the first week of college football. That just feels like, hey, honey, guess what's on? Like, is that Kansas State, Iowa State?
Football on.
Yeah, like it sneaks up on you. And the first week of college football season does not sneak up on you. It's very much apparent, and it's something you prepare for all week.
Yeah, that's fair. And my countdown is always when Georgia's actually playing anyway. So it's like and if Georgia's going to play on week 0, then yeah, maybe my countdown. I'll have to recalibrate. Have they ever?
Yeah.
I know. I don't even know how long week 0 has been an official thing. What, like a decade? Has it been that long? Like 5 years, 6 years?
Not long, but I do know it's like, I remember reading, was this last week in a Ross Dellinger Yahoo Sports piece? I want to say it was Dellinger, but about like, to even get a week 0 game, you have to have the reason the good teams play in week 0 overseas is because you have to get like a waiver to play in week 0 because the college football season doesn't start till week 1 of like August 30th. So if you're playing early, I think you have to get some kind of waiver or something. And that's why those games are overseas, I want to say, because you can't play. I think that's what it is. I remember there's something weird about that, but that's why that biggest game of the week is always overseas.
Gotcha. What was it? Was that Notre Dame or not Notre Dame? Georgia
Notre
Tech,
Dame, maybe,
Florida State.
Florida State and Georgia Tech was last year.
Yeah. And that was like an entertaining week 0 one. That Miami, Florida one was like, I feel like that was a big one. Like when it was like the 150th anniversary of college football and everything. But yeah, if you put a good game on week 0, like people are definitely going to watch it. Like that's why I feel like that noon slot has I feel like people have kind of realized how important that noon slot is in recent years. You're just like, everyone's watching game day just about, so they're ready to watch football. Like they've been waiting since 10 a.m. to watch football. Like last year, like Georgia Clemson, that was everyone in college football. Like every college football fan in the world was watching that game at noon. It was basically the first good game of the entire college football season.
Yeah, that's fair. But I'll still to be perfectly frank, I will still gladly take week 0 and we'll enjoy it. I believe Hawaii also plays week 0, so I'll watch that late. I think it's Hawaii Stanford. I want to say they play the night game against. I think it's in Hawaii. I want to say I think it's Hawaii and Stanford on the West Coast. But I don't know. We still got a little bit of time to go, Matt Green, but the Braves are cooked, so folks can kind of transition away from that. It looks like the Sellers front. But are you gonna, being the husband of a Chicago Cubs fan, are you, with the Cubs having a great year, is the transition happening? Is the Matt Green household making the switch from Braves games to Cubs games for the rest of the season?
No, absolutely not.
Oh,
okay. That's not how we roll. I mean, if the Cubs are in the playoffs and the Braves aren't in the playoffs, it's like, yeah, that's the team I'll root for. But it's like, not just gonna openly root for the Cubs.
So you're not making the second half switch?
No, I don't think so.
I think you'd be allowed to, like with your circumstance. I think this would be something allowed in the sports.
I mean, there is a Cubs flag right over here. So I mean,
yeah.
It's it's legit, but no, it usually isn't it's not too divided of a situation. I think this year they don't play till September, so I still haven't been to a Braves game this year. So maybe I need to get to a game, get the mojo back. I don't know. I saw some sort of stat. Yeah,
this is their worst start. Like 11 games, and last time they were 11 games under 500. At this point, they finished 72-90. I want to say, wasn't that in
the Freddie Gonzalez
2017? I think.
Man, that's crazy. I saw some stat that they've given up like 60 less runs than the Dodgers this year, and they have like 11 games under 500. Dodgers are like 23 over, I think. It's crazy.
It's tough, man. But let me tell you what's not tough, Matt Green, and that is a pod divided Vols versus Dogs each and every Sunday night here in the offseason. The 2 a week will be coming here before you know it. Like we talked about here at the top of today's show. The college football season will be here before you know it. What is it? 6 weekends to go. But who's counting? Am I right? But
54
Matt
days.
Green, how many? Well, I'm saying weeks. Like, what is that weeks wise? That's 6?
54 days. So Saturday will be 49. So 7 weeks away at that point.
Yeah, there you go.
So 6 more Saturdays, 5 more Saturdays without football.
It's true.
So I was looking at it. You said Kansas State, Iowa State. That is a solid week 0 matchup. Like a conference play right out of the gate. Fresno State at Kansas. Like you said, Stanford and Hawaii. So we got some Idaho State, UNLV, of course. But yeah, we got a couple games. So I don't know. It's something. A little appetizer.
That's what it is. It's an appetizer. It's just it's not the real thing. So calling it even week 0, I think, is a little silly. But I don't know what else to call it. I don't know what else to call it other than just week 0, or because it is what it is. It doesn't matter branding wise how we determine it. Whatever. Who cares?
Oh, and did you know that one was in Dublin too?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
That's what I was telling you. Why they're overseas every year. You have to get like some kind of waiver. Like it's some kind of weird reason as to why they play overseas every year. But yeah,
I don't get that. I feel like I don't know. What is Kansas State? How many Kansas State and Iowa State fans are there in Ireland? What are we doing there? What are we doing with this? I don't get it.
I mean, it's still a once in a lifetime type deal. I think my cousin went last year for Florida State, Georgia Tech, and enjoyed it, and they made a whole trip of it. It's an excuse to kind of travel, right? Like I'm okay with these. I will say it does kind of suck to lose a home game for this. I don't know if I would rather drop a home game, but if you don't go to every home game and you're not like a season ticket holder, I guess you kind of are just like, hey, this is still kind of fun to see my team in another spot. But yeah. And also it does say, like I was right about it was in Ross Dellinger's report from a couple weeks ago. He said, for now, schools wanting to play on week 0 must be granted a waiver by the NCAA governance committee. So yeah, you can't just play on week 0. I think you have to request it and get a waiver and all that stuff. So
who grants the waiver? Like
this committee, the NCAA governance committee.
Interesting.
But yeah. Matt Green, Dogs versus Vols here before we dive into our SEC biggest games for the West Division teams that no longer exist, plus Texas. But before we get into
still living in the East-West world, man, you got to move on.
No, you know what's going to happen when the leagues break apart and we get the super leagues once the ACC and the big boys in the Big 12 also find their last, like the end of the Titanic, just getting their spots on the life rafts. We're going to go back to like these divisions. Like we're going to bring back divisions in the Super League where we're just going to have like the AFC and NFC of like the divisions and that kind of thing. So we'll have the Southeast, the East Division, we'll have the West Division within the SEC. And it's just like maybe even 4 different versions, like the North, South, East, West of it. I don't know, but they're coming back. Like if you're going to do the Super Leagues because of the scheduling and everything else, I do think after the hopefully last final round of realignment in 5 to 6 years, whenever that ACC contract buyout goes out, 2031, something like that. That's when we'll see like the divisions come back and we reinvent divisions in college football.
I got this crazy idea. What if we separated it geographically? I know it's wild.
Yeah, we know that's what's going to happen.
Maybe one day.
Matt Green. On the Georgia front, I thought this would be cool for both Georgia and Tennessee to kind of look at the offense and the defense here in back-to-back weeks. But the UGA projected offensive depth chart. So Jake Rowe, of Dogs HQ, did a projected depth chart here on July 1st. When you look at his depth chart, I wanted to get your perspective. What stands out to you? Is there any surprises at the order of his depth chart from anywhere on the wide receivers to the running backs to the offensive line? What did you make of his projected depth chart as someone who is obviously reporting on the team in depth and has a good idea on where things stand. What stood out to you?
Yeah, I think it's basically exactly what I would expect. Excuse me. Monroe Freeling and Ernest Green at the 2 tackle spots. I wonder if Bo Hughley, he was a big time recruit. I wonder if you see kind of a 3 guys playing 2 positions thing like you saw a few years ago when they had, Amarius Mims, as like a freshman, sophomore before he was really a starter. So I wonder if you'll see Bo Hughley kind of in that. Ja Jackson is another guy that he's such a project, the former basketball player. I just want to see that guy get on the football field. He's like 6'9", 350 or something. Pretty agile basketball player also. So I think that's most likely. And then Juan Gaston, the big time true freshman. I don't know. He could be either be a tackle or a guard, I think, but I think he's a candidate to play, but he shouldn't, if all goes well, he shouldn't be starting ahead of Monroe Freeling or Ernest Green next year, So I think a lot of people, myself included, are pretty down on Green and Freeling, but I think both did battle injuries a year ago. So Ernest Green was really good in 2023. So maybe he gets back to that in 2025. And Monroe Freeling, a former 5-star. So you kind of hope that's what he is. But they have to be that if Georgia's, run game is going to be better than it was a year ago. And then Drew Bobo, from all accounts, should be the starting center. That's everything I've heard. And then he has Micah Morris at left guard and Daniel Calhoun, the redshirt freshman, at right guard. I could see Daniel Calhoun or Michael Uini, both redshirt freshmen, potentially that right guard. But yeah, you're going to have, and that's Juan Gaston is the other one he has listed there. You're going to have either a redshirt freshman or a freshman at that right guard spot. So that's going to be, the most inexperienced spot. But Micah Morris, that's, even though this is like his first year as an actual starter, he's kind of been in that. Tate Ratledge has missed a lot of time, in his last couple of years at Georgia. So Micah Morris has played a lot of snaps. It was really last year. I would bet it's kind of like what I was saying a second ago, 3 guys with 2 spots, like Fairchild, Ratledge, and Micah Morris. Like I feel like they share reps a good bit. So Micah Morris is the most experienced guy on that O-line probably. So I'm not worried about the left guard, but the right guard spot with that freshman, that's going to be like the biggest question mark.
Can I say that when you look at the running back depth chart, it doesn't look as deep as I think it feels like? Does that make sense? Where McCray, like, we'll see what the Illinois transfer does. I think that was a good late addition pickup for the Dogs and Josh McCray. Roderick Robinson still has to prove he can stay healthy. That is still a question mark. Like, he can play. I saw like a workout video of him run up the hills, I think, today. I don't know if you saw that on X earlier, of him doing some work, some drills. So, maybe he's a super talented guy, but he's someone you still have to see. Cash Jones is a gadget guy. Like, he is a useful player for Georgia, but he's not. I don't even know if you want to. I guess you have to count him as a running back, but he's just like a gadget guy. Like you do, he uses, like, he's in for specific reasons. They utilize his skill
pass
set,
blocking or slipping out of the backfield,
right? Like, he does cool stuff. But Chauncey Bowens still has not proven anything. Bo Walker's a true freshman. Dwight Phillips, redshirt freshman. I don't know.
Chauncey Bowens is the one that looked the best in the spring game. And so I think that's what has people, with a little bit of buzz. And Bo Walker, the true freshman, also is kind of creating a buzz this spring too.
But that's the thing, is I think they just have a lot of unproven. Like, you look at it and you're like, they still need some things to break their way, or this is going to be the Nate Frazier show again.
Yeah. And I think fumbles are something that you don't always get out of. So I don't know. And it's the easiest way to lose playing time. As high as I am on Nate Frazier, I think he flashes that ability of, like, a first round pick type of running back potentially. It shows why he was a 5-star. But if you're fumbling the ball, like, that's the biggest thing that I don't know that you can just pencil in Nate Frazier for a 1,200 yard season if he's getting all the carries. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know that he's that good right now as a sophomore. But I think Josh McCray is the X factor, because that's what Georgia didn't have a year ago. Etienne and Frazier are just the same kind of style, shifty back, kind of versatile, catching the ball in the backfield. Etienne obviously could get tough yards, but Josh McCray, like, was 6 feet, 240. Like, this dude is a hammer going up the middle. So I think having a contrasting style, you've just kind of seen that every time Georgia's had one of these good duos. You have your kind of your thunder and lightning. And so I think Josh McCray could give Georgia what they didn't have a year ago. What you did have in, like, even someone who wasn't great, two guys weren't great, Zamir White and Kendall Milton, they still were like that element of the power guy that could get some of those tough yards.
That's fair. On the Tennessee side of things, when I was thinking about the projected depth chart, because this exercise got started by me just thinking about the Georgia side of things and seeing Jake Rowe's piece over there on Dogs HQ. But I think for me, when I think about the projected depth chart this year, and this is something that I wrote about extensively today over at sportsrenaissanceman.com, something that stands out to me is the receivers. Like, you feel good when you go through the history of the Josh Heupel era thus far. The first 2 years, Tennessee was very fortunate. I wouldn't even say the first 2 years, first year and a half, basically, they were fortunate at the receiver spot. And one of the interesting things that happened was after year one, where you were only playing Javonte Payton, Velus Jones Jr., and Cedric Tillman, they combined for nearly 2,000 snaps in 2021. And Jalen Hyatt filtered in a little bit, but he didn't get on the field a whole bunch. So fans were wondering, like, oh, is this just like part of the deal? Is it tempo? Is there a reason that we don't rotate that much at that position? Like, how is that going to work recruiting wise? This, that, and the other. 22, Cedric Tillman burst onto the scene at Pittsburgh and gets 22 catches or whatever it was, targeted a bunch, game-winning touchdown catch to save the Vols. He has an ankle injury. My wedding weekend against Akron. And he has tightrope surgery. And he's never like 100% the rest of the season, right? Like, he's now an awesome NFL player for the Browns, starting for them. Shout out to Cedric Tillman. But he was not the same from that game on. They were lucky, though, because they had Ramel Keaton waiting in the wings, who rose to the challenge, had a big catch, obviously, against Florida, and really settled in for Cedric Tillman. Like, he was not as good as Cedric Tillman, but he was solid. And Tennessee's offense obviously was number one in the country there. So, first 2 years, still not a lot of rotation. Like, once Ramel went in, it was still those three. Like, you weren't. Like, they've rotated the last couple of years. Like, they've been trying to find their best three. Like, Brew McCoy, someone who looked like he was bursting onto the scene in 23, he has that gruesome ankle injury against South Carolina, which just sucks because Brew McCoy was going to be a star. People don't remember like how explosive he was before that injury in that game. And I think Brew McCoy was going to have an all-time great Tennessee receiver season before that injury 2 years ago. But again, you had to make some adjustments on the fly. You had some bad injury luck. Squirrel White played in all 13 games this year, but he was banged up throughout the year, and he had his worst season as a ball in the slot in his 3 years. This year, you look at the depth chart and you look at, okay, every single receiver in that 7-man room is a blue chipper except for one guy, and it's the upperclassman, the lone upperclassman, and Chris Brazzell. He's a 3-star transfer from Tulane. There's a bunch of turnover in that room. It's glaring to look at that depth chart and to see how young it is and how thin it is because you only added one portal guy who you hope can help you this year, but it seems like that's a year away. And Amari Jefferson from Alabama, we'll see. He's a 4-star kid out of Baylor. We'll see what he can give you. But like, there's a scenario where you're like, man, Boo Carter is really going to play some serious snaps in the slot if the injury bug hits this team, because I just don't know where you go. Do you really throw Joakim Dotson, who's a true freshman? He was one of your 2 late enrollees. He didn't get here in December. The only other slot guy there outside of Boo Carter. So you look at that and you're like, Mike is a 5-star outside guy. He has all the talent to break out. Braylon Staley, 4-star guy, has all the talent to break out. Chris Brazzell, year 2 in the system. We've seen transfers make that year 2 jump, whether that was Jalen Hyatt, whether that was Cedric Tillman, whether that was Dante Thornton, Brew McCoy in 23. Like, we've seen that over and over again. Like, it takes a year for these guys to get comfortable in the system. So if you told me that Chris Brazzell had a solid bounce back year in his final year, potentially at Tennessee, that wouldn't surprise me. But I think what's flipped to me when I look at it, what's so interesting is I think you don't want a rotation. If there is a rotation this year at receiver for Tennessee, the passing game is going to suck, I think, because that means you're not getting what you need, or you're getting destroyed with the injury bug and you're just trying out different freshmen, because you have Rodarius Jackson and Travis Smith, 2 true freshmen, 4 stars, good players who I like a lot, who could be good. You don't want to throw them into the fire here on a team that's trying to make it back to the CFP. And it's just, like I said, a hard offense to learn, especially for receivers in their first year. They have to have those three guys, Brazel, Staley, and Mike. They have to play a bunch of snaps. They have to get close to that 2,000 snap number in 2021. So it's like, even though that was so long ago and the conversation was around, hey, we need to start rotating more to get these guys more experience and more ready to go. This year, I'm like, no. We don't want to rotate at all. Like, you just got to get through this year. Like, you got Ravage in the portal. You didn't add enough. It is what it is. But like, you're okay because I got asked about this on my radio show last week, is like, you're okay if Brazel, Mike, and Braylon don't get hurt. But if you have one lingering injury or one issue with like a Mike or even a Brazel, like, then your lone veteran's gone potentially, and you're just going super young. And I just have a hard time believing that goes well for Tennessee's passing game. And you kind of need this passing game to get back on track after 2 years of below average quarterback play, that you fans are getting kind of antsy about the downfield passing game. So I just think it's a really interesting thing to look at the step chart offensively and think about how much I don't want rotation at receiver, because I think that was the talking point in the first couple of years of the Heupel era. It's like, hey, yeah, the tempo is awesome. The big time plays are awesome, but like, are we going to rotate there? Is that because you rotate so much at running back, like, it's going to be hard to keep these receivers, these talented receivers you're bringing in, if you don't rotate. And now I think this year it's like, man, you can't rotate. These guys need to play 2,000 snaps total combined.
I think it's fair to start to question the passing game after 2 years in a row. I think if this team can be fine, offensively, if they get the running game going like they usually do, and these guys are serviceable. But I think if this offense is actually going to be good next year, I think Mike Matthews has to be the 5-star wide receiver he was coming out of high school. Like, he's got to be a star. And maybe I don't think you're going to get that from Brazel, because if Brazel was that, he probably would have done it last year, but he could be a good player in 2025. But I think Mike Matthews feels like the only one that has that ceiling of like, could be a game changer for their offense if he takes the steps that you kind of expect based on the high school ranking.
No, I agree. Like, I just want Brazel to be like, I don't think he even beat Dante Thornton last year, who I think was one of the best receivers in the SEC and honestly college football as a whole when he was in the field. But give me Javonte Payton in 2021. Like, just a good, like, made something happen after the catch, gets a couple balls a game, like 3 catches for 60 yards more often than not, with a touchdown sprinkled in every couple of games. That would be fine on the
Personally,
outside.
Cedric Tillman is my number 1 Tennessee receiver in recent years. Like, I know Hyatt was the Blitnikoff winner, right? Did he win the award?
Yes.
I know his stats is the huge game versus Alabama, the moments, but I just always felt like Cedric Tillman had the highest upside as like an NFL receiver.
I mean,
I don't
he's
know even
starter
know what
right
he's doing
now.
right now. What is he doing?
He's starting for the Browns.
I feel like I believe in Cedric Tillman. He's a big body receiver. Like, I don't know. Hyatt still hasn't been very good, right, to this point?
No, he hasn't been able to figure it out to this point, but still time. But yeah, Cedric Tillman's fine. Hyatt's with the Giants.
Yeah, 2 years in the league so far?
Yes. Same year that Tillman came in, yeah.
Okay.
But I think Tillman is just the what if, because he was on pace for a big time year. He got kind of do you remember the Alabama season with Devontae and Waddle, where Waddle obviously got hurt and it kind of opened the door for Devontae to break out?
Yeah, Waddle was like their best receiver in the first like 4 or 5 games.
That's what happened in 22 for Tennessee, where Cedric Tillman was their best receiver. Like, you go back and watch that Pitt game. Hendon Hooker was looking for Cedric Tillman early and often, and it was just not the same guy after the ankle thing in Akron. But Jalen Hyatt benefited greatly from becoming. I mean, Hyatt would have had a great year, but I do think Tillman not being the same from Akron on was hugely beneficial for him.
Because Tillman was the intended receiver on that Ringo pick, right? In Sanford Stadium, like the big time game, like number 1 versus number 1.
I recall. I wish we would have seen it without the conditions being what they were.
I think it was a perfect day for football, sir.
Well, I don't know. That's like also one of those things, like those footballisms where it's like, that's you know what I don't like? Football weather. I'm like, no, it's not. This is not football weather. No, football weather is 75, nice and like maybe even hotter, like good conditions, sunny.
I mean, what was it, like 21-3 or something when it started raining? It was like third quarter when it started raining, right? I can't remember what I know. just the awful non-safety call. It's just like the worst call I've ever seen. But then so that was McConkey was the first. No, the first touchdown was when Stetson did the whole call me thing. So then they went up 14-0 on that McConkey touchdown.
Not 14-0 because I think Tennessee had a field goal early. Tennessee went up 3-0.
Were they up 3? Oh,
because y'all had a fumble. Y'all fumbled early, and Tennessee picked up the fumble and kicked a field goal.
That's right. Fumble around like midfield or something. Yeah. That sounds familiar. Okay. Maybe McIntosh was it that fumbled? I can't remember.
Good question. No, it was a freshman. Who was that? I remember. I don't think it was McIntosh, but I thought it was a freshman for some reason.
A freshman. I don't know who that would have been.
Who was
Branson
running?
Robinson?
If you say the name off top of your, like, who were the
Branson
22?
Robinson would have been a freshman.
It wouldn't have been him though.
I don't know. Dejon Edwards.
It might have been Edwards.
Milton.
Oh, it was Milton. It was Milton.
So yeah, it was like 20-3. What was the final score of that game? It was something. It didn't look like 27-13, something like that. Like it didn't look like as big of a blowout as it truly was, right?
Well, what I will also say about that,
I think it was raining. It was already a blowout when it was raining. That's all.
Here's what I will say about that game, though. There are 3 plays, deep bombs that a couple were dropped by Tennessee. There were a couple shot plays, and I'm just telling you, Tennessee usually hit those. And I am not saying, like, what I am saying is if those hit, I'm not like a couple of those, it is maybe a different game. But the problem also is Jalen Carter was best player on the field, and Tennessee could not handle Jalen Carter at the line of scrimmage. Like Georgia's defensive line was just
and I mean, there was that in the fourth quarter where they literally got a sack like 5 plays in a row. Like Javon Bullard got a sack like 2 or 3 plays in a row on the corner blitz. And then I think Georgia got a face mask on the sack that was like on 3rd and long. And then they got like 2 more sacks or something. It was insane. It was a great day for football. We should relive this game more often.
Hard pass, Matt Green. Before we dive into our SEC biggest games of the West plus Texas, Matt Green, I think you have a college football playoff take you want to get off your chest here.
I do, sir. Been a couple weeks since we had my CFP Bowl predictions. This is my 4th one so far. And I don't know if you know, but last year we had 7 of the 12 teams were teams that had a first-year starting quarterback. And that's not that means first year starting for their team, not, Gabriel or who else, a couple transfers that obviously had started before. I think in 2025, we will have more first-year starters on the 12 college football playoff teams than we did a year ago. So that's 8, at least 8 college football playoff starters will be first year on their team. So I'm just looking like right off the top of my head, like Cade Klubnik, Drew Aller, Garrett Nussmeier, Luke Altmaier. Like that's a big one. Luke Altmaier going all the way to Illinois. They're like a dark horse because they don't play anybody like Indiana last year. So
can we stop calling them a dark horse when everyone's putting them in their CFP? When do you no longer become a dark horse?
And that's why I feel like rankings should always be how good you think someone is and not like where you think they'll finish. Because then it's like if Illinois, people are like, oh, their schedule sucks, they'll probably finish like top 10. And then you rank them 10. And then they just don't play anybody and they just stay in the top 10 the whole year. That makes no sense. Like at least make them kind of work their way up the polls. And then Arizona State. I feel like those are kind of the 5 I can think of off the top of my head with the best chance to do it with a more than a first year starter. But yeah, there's a lot of teams. I don't know where you call Lagway or if Florida is even a playoff team at all, but you just look at some of the big time teams next year: Ohio State, Georgia, Texas, Notre Dame, Alabama, Oregon. Like a lot, most of the top 10 is going to be teams with a first year starter.
Yeah, I'm not putting Garrett Nussmeier and LSU in. That's a whole seed to believe it, but I don't know. I guess
that's one of the few potential ones right there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of room for some new teams in there, especially because Ohio State, I feel comfortable in. I feel comfortable with Alabama. I feel comfortable with Georgia. I feel comfortable with Texas. I feel comfortable with Notre Dame.
I don't even know who Notre Dame's starter is. Did they get a transfer?
CJ Carr.
Or that's a returning player?
No, he's a new starter. I was doing new starters.
Yeah, but where is he from? Was he on Notre Dame already?
Yeah, he was on. He's Lloyd Carr's grandson.
Lloyd Carr's grandson, man, going to the Irish.
4-star. Also, the Irish have gotten so many like past NFL stars. Have you seen that? They're on right now.
Yeah.
Larry Fitzgerald, Thomas Davis. Who's the other one in this class? Oh, Jermichael Finley, his son. And then I think they had Byron Young's son last cycle. So they're real. And I think Urlacher's son's there.
Bryce Young, right?
No, I think it's Byron Young.
His name is Bryce
Young. Oh,
now.
yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But
Urlacher too?
I think Urlacher's there, I want to say.
Man.
A lot of NFL names over there at Notre Dame. But yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of new first-time guys, for sure.
So yeah, that's the hot take of the week, sir. At least 8 are going to be first year on their team.
Okay. I mean,
you look at how many teams in the SEC. We were doing the quarterback rankings a few weeks back. Like it's like South Carolina, LSU, the Vanderbilt. Like there's not a very long list of Arkansas, A&M, I guess. There's not many returning starters in the SEC in general, depending on what you call Lagway, because he kind of half started. But yeah, it's gonna be an interesting year, man.
For sure. Well, Matt Green, let's dive into our SEC biggest games of the West Division plus Texas. Where do you want to start?
I think you got your order right here, right?
Last week you wanted to do alphabetical, and you had a whole order of operations here.
I would do this alphabetical, but you threw Texas. You basically did do it alphabetical. You threw Texas at the start here, so let's just do Texas.
Is that alphabetical? Here. Texas at the start?
It is out. Because they were never in the SEC West, so it's like they're either at the start or at the back. I don't know. I guess Texas at the back would almost be alphabetical, but that's not important right now, sir.
So we'll start with Texas.
Let's just start with the Texas Longhorns.
Who do you have as their biggest game of the 2025 season?
I think their biggest game of the season is at Ohio State, week 1. I think you might think it's a cop-out, sir, but I think because of what this schedule is, like this schedule is really relying on Oklahoma and Florida, 2 teams that could both go 5-7 this year. It's relying on those teams being like legit 8, 9, 10 win teams to have a legit schedule this year. Like if Oklahoma and Florida are both as good as they were a year ago, like this team will not face, after Ohio State, will not face another ranked team until Georgia mid-September. So I think if they get past Ohio State, and it's just going to be the narrative, right? If they lose to Ohio State week 1, it's going to be, oh yeah, they look good. Who did they play? They look good. Who have they played? It's going to be a thing to talk about their schedule all year. And it's also going to be a whole Big Ten versus SEC thing, even though Texas just got here. So I don't even know why, but whatever. I think if they beat Texas, they'll basically cruise to 9-0. And at worst 8-1, and I don't think anyone is really going to talk about the schedule. I think the Ohio State game will buy them kind of that benefit of the doubt the whole way if they just start 1-0. I think if this team starts 1-0, they're at worst 8-1 going into Sanford Stadium.
That's interesting. I don't think it's Ohio State because I just think they're just going to win flat out. I think Ohio State takes a step back this year. I think Ohio State's like a 9-3. Type of team. I think there's a chance.
A step back can Ohio State even take though?
It's easy to forget how ugly it was that final Kyle McCord year, where Ryan Day has to hire Chip Kelly to flip the script and change the narrative because it was ugly. Like that offensive line was not good. The quarterback play was not what you expected in a 5-star McCord, and then he goes and balls out right after he leaves under Fran Brown. Shout out to Fran Brown with the 5-star receiver over there at Syracuse, the highest I think rated recruit they've ever added for the Orangemen up there in northern New York. But I will say, Matt Green, I don't think so. When it comes to Ohio State, I just don't think they're going to be as good. So I think it's going to those early season matchups that you're like, oh, 2 heavyweights. First year quarterback, redshirt freshman Julian Sand. Brian Hartline's never called plays. That's his first game calling plays against one of the best defenses, maybe the best defense in the SEC next season, with one of the best defensive coordinators in the SEC. Like, yes, it's going to help that it's at Ohio State, but it's a nooner. I think Texas is just going to walk into. Do you remember what Texas did at Michigan last year, Matt Green?
Yeah.
I think they're going to do something similar to Ohio State. And I think it's going to be kind of jarring for folks where they're like, oh, the defending champs, they lost a whole heck of a lot of talent. They lost both running backs. They lost multiple receivers. Like, this is a young group that lost their elite top 3 defensive coordinator, replaced him with Matt Patricia. Like, this is not the same team. It'd be one thing if Chip Kelly and why am I blanking on his name? From now at Penn State, they're Jim Knowles, defensive coordinator. Like, it'd be one thing if they were both back. Like, you could talk me into this one. I think the coordinator hires this offseason were a disaster for Ohio State and Ryan Day. So I think Texas is going to blast them. I think Arch Manning, like, the Heisman stuff is going to be insane out of this game. And I think there's going to be a huge overreaction where it's like, oh, they knock out the heavyweights early. And I just don't think Ohio State's that good. I think Ohio State's going to be like closer to the 9-10 range than the 1-3 range this year.
No, that's fair in terms of people forget that 2024 was the worst regular season of Ryan Day's career.
Yes.
And they lost to Michigan for a 4th year in a row. I think Ohio State just has such a floor. Like, Michigan is just not Ohio State. I know both of those teams were defending national champions, Michigan a year ago, now Ohio State this year. But I just feel like Ohio State's floor is 10 wins. Like, they're going to be elite. They're going to be in the playoff. Like, I just think it doesn't really matter how much they lost. So Ohio State is just, they're one of the few that actually.
Well, hold on. Can I tell you that I don't think that's their floor? Like, they go to Washington, who I think is going to be really good. They go to Illinois, who we both think is going to be really good. I think Wisconsin's going to stink, but that doesn't matter. They still finish at Michigan, where they can't win, and they still have Penn State at home. This is a 9-3 team. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Ohio State goes 9-3 this year. Like, I know we haven't gotten the preview season, but I just don't. Right there. 9-3 Buckeyes.
Hard disagree. They also have the best player in college football on their team, which doesn't hurt. But also in the projection for Illinois is factoring in that loss to Ohio State. So it's like, you'll go 11-1 and lose to Ohio State. It's like, hey, this is a playoff team.
Well, can I say on the Texas front, or my team?
Yeah,
I think it's at Florida. I think that is going to be a bloodbath, and I think it's a gigantic game for Florida, depending on what happens with LSU with them. But Florida needs some early season juice. And that game was not competitive last year, but DJ Lagway didn't play in that game. So we don't have a real indicator of how close Florida is. Because remember, Lagway went 6-1 as a starter down the stretch. I don't know what that game would have looked like with Lagway. I'm not saying they would have won, but I do want to know, because Texas, I mean, Florida was giving Georgia a game.
One is Lagway get credit for losing to Georgia?
Yes.
Is that the one? Oh. So, I mean, that's hard. It's hard to say it's a loss for Lagway also.
Right. So I think Florida, like I said, I think Florida is going to be a really good team this year. But I do think if Texas drops that game, they have no margin for error. Because you talk about it, their schedule sucks again, which is great for Texas if they take care of business, but a huge problem if they're 9-3, because they're not making the playoff with this schedule at 9-3. And if you drop the Florida game, which I think is very much up in the air, going to the Swamp and Arch Manning's first trip there, and just, I don't know. I think this is going to be a very, very difficult environment and potential matchup for Texas in the Swamp. I would lean towards the Gators winning this game outright. If you drop that game, then you have right after that, you have to get up off the mat against Oklahoma, who we'll see. But you can't lose to Oklahoma. You can't lose to, like, you can lose basically one of, if you beat Ohio State, one of the next Oklahoma, Georgia on the road, and A&M at home to finish out. Like, you have one other game to drop. So I just think all the pressure gets turned up because you've such an expensive roster. You have all this preseason national title buzz. It's Arch Manning's first year. He's waited his turn. You drop the Florida game, pressure's turned up. Like, you have very, very limited margin of error from there on out, because you don't have another, like, the schedule just doesn't have a bunch of great wins for you. You just have to take care of business and get to 10 and get to the CFP. But I don't know, man. I think Florida's huge for them. If they beat Florida, they can just skip to the college football playoff. They drop Florida, which I think is very possible. Longhorn fans will be sweating a back-to-back trip to the CFP.
Yeah, Florida's such just a chaos team in general this year. I feel like that's something that Texas just never had to deal with in the Big 12, was playing at Florida the week before Oklahoma. It's like
Yeah.
you circle Oklahoma for a couple weeks in their Big 12 schedule. And it always felt like Oklahoma was kind of their first big game of the year, maybe that first weekend of October or so. So to have it at Florida, like if there's no trap game, it's like that's going to be a huge environment. I feel like Florida is always good for when Florida is good, which they could be good this year. It seems like they're always good for beating someone they shouldn't at home. Like even that, I think what was it, Dan Mullen's first year where LSU came in like top 5 or so, first year with Joe Burrow, and Florida was one of the few losses they had on their schedule that year in the Swamp. But yeah, I think that's fair. I think the Florida game is definitely big, but I will say this to you, the other point you made: if Texas goes 9-3, they are 100% getting in the college football playoff.
No,
I really think so.
No,
it's because it's Texas, and it's like this is why the 12-team playoff sucks. Like they're gonna be preseason number 2, lose to Ohio State, drop to number 6 or something, win all these games. Maybe they lose to Florida in the Swamp or something. And then they find a way to work their way up to the polls. And then they're number 7, number 6 by the time they play Georgia. I don't know. I feel like this is why the 12-team playoff sucks. It's because a team that's preseason top 5, depending on when they lose and who they lose to, they can go 9-3 and make the playoff.
They're not making the playoff at 9-3. No chance. This is fear mongering from Matt Green.
I hope not, man. It's Texas is really, I don't know. It's interesting how much people are putting on Texas and Arch Manning, Paul Feinbaum, calling him like a generational and all this. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying Arch Manning's not going to be great this year, but there's not many like generational players that legitimately like sit and don't really play for 2 years. Like, it's not always true, but you can't find a lot of examples of those guys.
Okay. Next up, Alabama. I think we're going to have the same game here. Who's the biggest game on Alabama's calendar this year, Matt Green?
We do not have the same game here, sir. I think the dark horse game, I'll say this. You definitely weren't expecting this. The dark horse game is at South Carolina because it's like, depending on what happens in their season, at Georgia, Tennessee, maybe they already have 2 losses going into Williams-Brice Stadium. Maybe they have 1 loss on their schedule going to Williams-Brice Stadium, even before they have to play LSU and Auburn down the stretch. So I think South Carolina is kind of a dark horse, most important game. But I think if I had to pick one, I think it's LSU. I think LSU, Alabama could definitely decide one of the teams that plays in the SEC championship this year.
Man, South Carolina, I'll believe when I see it. The South Carolina front, I think they'll be totally fine there.
Yeah, I don't know what to expect from South Carolina this year.
I think South Carolina's a big year for South Carolina. South Carolina, LSU, huge years for them, but we'll get to them and our preview series soon enough. I think it's Georgia, because if they keep stepping on Georgia's neck, like even in Athens, Georgia, where Georgia's on this gigantic heater, Bama's on this gigantic recruiting heater, they're just 2 heavyweights right now, just dropping blows back and forth to each other. And Georgia went and laid an egg in Tuscaloosa last year and came all the way back and then got their just heart ripped out by Ryan Williams at the tail end. If Bama goes in to Sanford Stadium this fall and beats Georgia again, year 2, Kalen DeBoer, like that's a for real statement from DeBoer and company, where it's like, Nick Saban's not here, but yeah, Kirby, this is like you're building a great thing and you've done a really great job, but like we're still Alabama and I'm still one of the best college football coaches in America. And that's a flag planting moment for the Crimson Tide in this new era. If they walk into Sanford and just are unfazed by who's across the sideline and just beat Georgia again, like just beat them in their home stadium and give them that home loss that Georgia fans have not had in the Kirby Smart era in a long time now. So to me, I like, it's kind of a cop-out answer, I guess, but I still think it's Bama at Georgia, because if Bama wins that game again, man, like Georgia fans, like, yeah, you've got 2 titles and it's not the same, but it's still just like Man, it'd be nice to like flip the script on the Bama series at some point. Like, yeah, we beat them in the national title game, but that's it. Like, it's still just been mostly Bama dominating the series, even with Kirby. If Kalen comes in and beats you back-to-back years, you're like, goodness gracious, in our home stadium? Like, and Bama gets all the confidence in the world. Like, Bama's on a rocket ship at that point. But
See,
yeah,
but that's where I think that's why it's the most important game for Georgia, without a doubt. But I don't think there's the same pressure on Alabama in Georgia, because it's like you're going to play Georgia at Georgia. Like, it's going to be the 5th ranked team in the country or something, most likely. Like, that's there's no pressure on Alabama to win that game. It feels like a cherry on top kind of thing. Like, if they go in and beat Georgia early, it kind of sets the tone for like, okay, Alabama could be in a driver's seat in the SEC for most of the year. So from that perspective, I see its importance. But I feel like there's no real pressure on them to win, because I mean, if they're sitting at 6-1, 7-1 at some point later in the year, and the one loss is in Athens to Georgia, like, that's one of the best losses in college football probably to that point. They're probably in the argument for one of the best one-loss teams and everything like that. So it feels like a game later in the season, depending on what South Carolina does, if they're a team that starts 6-1 or something, or if LSU is 7-1, 8-1, it feels like one of those games could just have more of an impact on what Alabama accomplishes in 2025.
maybe. I also will say, let me just go on the record here. If Bama beats Georgia, I think they're going to be the 1 seed in the CFP. I think they go 11-1 in the regular season if they beat Georgia.
Who do they lose to?
I think if they lose to anybody, it's at Auburn to end, or LSU.
That'd be pretty wild to start 11-0 and lose to Auburn.
Yeah. I mean, that would be the most Auburn thing at the last game of the season. There is precedent for it.
Once everyone's decided, okay, we're turning the page on Hugh Freeze, we need to fire him.
Well,
and then he beats Bama.
When Bama with McCarron, they were undefeated when they went to Auburn and lost, right?
Yeah, kick 6.
Yeah, that was undefeated.
Yeah.
Bama. Yeah. So there is a precedent for it.
Yeah, BCS is a little different.
True. I'm just saying, like, there's precedent for Alabama coming into Jordan Hare undefeated and finishing their season with a loss.
That's true.
Next up, Auburn. Speak of the devil, the Auburn Tigers at Oklahoma is mine, Matt Green. I just jumped out of here and threw mine out, but is that the same as yours or no?
Are you you're not very good at alphabetical order, are you, sir?
I didn't do alphabetical order. I didn't claim to be trying to do alphabetical order.
No, you almost nailed it for the most
Well, I mean,
part,
I have Ole Miss and Mississippi State. This was just stream of consciousness as I was doing the SEC West.
Fair enough, but we'll go to Auburn. Yeah, I actually agree. I had the same one. I know there's that streak. Maybe it's over now. For the longest time, they were undefeated against Texas A&M. In College Station, like they're like first 5 or 6 times they played in the conference. So A&M back to back at Oklahoma and Texas A&M. I think that's kind of, I didn't know which of those games is most important. You know, I think that's 4th and 5th games of the season. It feels like if they're sitting at 3-2 and they drop both of those, it's just, I feel like you don't have much confidence in Auburn this year. But if they can win one of those and start 4-1, I think there's a legitimate chance at Auburn being some kind of dark horse or something. But I think those 2 games, I mean, those are just 3 teams that are just such wild cards in general: Oklahoma, Texas A&M, and Auburn. And I think I almost don't know which of those games, both on the road. But Jackson Arnold playing in Norman is just massive. Maybe that storyline makes Oklahoma the most important game. But yeah, it feels like kind of a crossroads early game, like we were doing with like Missouri and South Carolina a week ago. It's like kind of an early kind of, okay, we're separating the contenders from the pretenders, you know?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I can't wait for just the uncomfortableness of September 20th of Auburn in Oklahoma. Because Auburn might be coming off a Baylor loss in that opener. Baylor is being mocked by, I think, Phil Steele to win the Big 12 this year. Solly Robertson's legit, and they kept Jake Spavital, their OC, and like Baylor could be really good this year and be the
at
CFP
Baylor
team.
too.
It's at Baylor. Like, I don't think that's a game. I don't think that's a guarantee.
Night game too, 8 o'clock on Fox.
That's a good one. I think a lot of people might overlook that game, but that will be a fun one, and I would not be surprised if Baylor.
Oh, that's a Friday night. That's a Friday night one.
That's perfect.
That's the week, the day before the season actually starts. So that's a nice little appetizer before Saturday.
That's true. I like it. I just think Oklahoma, like that just is going to spiral one of the two teams, right? Because Auburn after that Oklahoma game goes to A&M, Georgia at home, Mizzou at home, at Arkansas, Kentucky at home, at Vandy, Mercer at home, and Bama at home. Auburn doesn't get the same kind of schedule love that Florida and Oklahoma gets, where they're like, oh, what do you do with the schedule? I don't know what people are looking at, but Auburn's schedule is also pretty brutal. Like when you really look at the second half, Auburn's schedule is hard. Like this is a really difficult schedule.
Just the fact that you don't play a Power 5 team at home until October 11th, like that's insane. Like you play Baylor, Oklahoma, and A&M all on the road, just playing that Big 12 schedule, Auburn, in September. What a conference, or what a interesting SEC schedule to play. If you told someone back in 2008 that Auburn was going to play Baylor, Oklahoma, and Texas A&M, they looked at you funny.
Maybe that's why Hugh's golfing so much this summer. He's like, I know what's ahead of me this fall. It's going to be, I don't play an important key home game until mid-October. What do you want me to do?
I got to take advantage. I still have access to all these courses.
It's true. Arkansas. Who do you have, Matt Green, is the most important game for Arkansas on their schedule this year?
Arkansas Razorbacks. I think it's either week 3 at Ole Miss, but it's, night game in Oxford. It's not like they're necessarily supposed to win that one. I think Ole Miss is just a team we don't necessarily know exactly what they are in 2025 yet. But also you got Notre Dame coming to Arkansas in week 5. So if they're able to win one of those games, this team's starting 4-1. Like, who knows? I think that's about the best Arkansas can ask for. Not that it's just insane to think they could start 5-0 with that start. Also at Memphis is probably a sneaky one for what Arkansas has been. So probably shouldn't even be talking about going 5-0. But I think if they can start the season 4-1, like that's massive. I don't know what all Arkansas's goals are for 2025, but win 7 games. I think you're on your way to doing it. Win 8 games. I think everyone's cool. I mean, if they win 7 games, do they want to fire Sam Pittman? Like, what do they want? What do they want at Arkansas?
I don't know. It just depends on what the vibe is. What does 7-5 look like? Does Taylor Green have a fantastic year and get to 7-5? Does the offense look rolling like Petrino has got that thing humming? But does that also just lead into, all right, Petrino is back as one of the best coordinators in the SEC. Let's just go ahead and make him head coach, and we'll get a good DC to back him up. Like I don't actually know what that means if Petrino does really well and Taylor Green breaks out for Sam Pittman. Sam Pittman also just might retire. Like, who knows what happens there? He might have a great year and just be like, all right, cool. I went out on a high-ish note, and I got to 7-5 or 8-4 or something. But to me, there were a couple that stood out. Like, I think it's so random that Notre Dame is coming there in late September. Like, that's just going to be that's a bizarre placement for a out of conference big time game. I don't know why the schedule makers put Notre Dame in Fayetteville in late September, but I think if you're Notre Dame, you don't love that spot. Like that's an absolute letdown, look ahead spot. Shout out to the guys over there at Solid Verbal, Matt Green, because I don't think our Notre Dame is going to be locked in to go to Fayetteville at that point in the season. And if you take Fayetteville hog country for granted, that could be dicey for the Irish. But for me, I like the Ole Miss call early because a win there also puts Ole Miss really like, this might be a fallback year for the Lane train, but it also inspires confidence for Arkansas, because then, like you said, start hot, be undefeated, potentially going into that Notre Dame game. Suddenly that is a big time deal. That might be a college game day. I don't have the college game day slate in front of me, but if Arkansas is undefeated going into that game against Notre Dame, they're probably ranked, and that's they don't get to go to Arkansas as much lately. So who knows? All that being said, I think it's Mizzou at the end of the year now. They're de facto rival now in the SEC. They could play spoiler. They could knock. Mizzou is going to flirt with 10-2 this year. And we as a society I've said that we have to stop Mizzou from getting 10-2 and making the college football playoff. Arkansas can do that at home, rivalry game, go out strong. Who knows? Like I said, it might be Sam Pittman's final game. I think it's Mizzou because there would be nothing more hilarious than Mizzou just having this cakewalk schedule that will end after this year, and they're back to just big boy SEC football after this year, and to come one game short because their rival knocked them out in the final week of the season. I think it's Mizzou.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, half the time is the Mizzou game is determining whether or not they're going to a bowl game. So it ends up being super important. But like last year, you had a few of these big time games at home, so it's just there's multiple opportunities to knock off a top 10 opponent, and they got Tennessee a year ago. But now just going at Tennessee, at LSU, at Texas. I don't know. I guess the biggest home game outside of Missouri, like you're talking, is probably A&M. So it's like if you're gonna upset a ranked SEC team, A&M and Missouri, I guess, are the opportunities to do it next year at home. Yeah. But yeah, do they go to a bowl game?
Yes.
Okay. You said
Just barely. I think it's like 7-5, 6-6 is a good call. But I do think this is Sam Pittman's final year. Someone's going to do something in the SEC.
I think if they start 4-1, they go to a bowl game. If they start 3-2, I don't think they make it.
That's fair. Next up, Ole Miss. Who do you have as their biggest game this year?
The Ole Miss Rebels. I think their biggest game of the year, I would probably say it's LSU week 5, because if they beat LSU week 5, this team is starting 6-0. And you just look at how Ole Miss has started since 2021, started 7-1 that year, started 8-1, I think in 2022, right? Started 5-1 a year ago. I think they started 7-0 one of those years. They've just gotten off to really hot starts every year, and some of those, I think one of those they started 6-1 and ended 8-5 or something. But if they can start, that was the problem a year ago, was just beating the teams they should beat. You know, they showed up for their biggest games a year ago. But if they can beat LSU at home, like that's going to be the biggest environment, I feel like, in Oxford. Just they're waiting for that first big game, either a 3:30 or an 8 o'clock game. But yeah, if they beat LSU, they're starting 6-0, and I mean they could be 6-0 going into Athens, Georgia on October 18th. So I mean, and after last year, they could start 7-0 because they could beat Georgia. So who knows? But Ole Miss is a really interesting one. A couple of wild card teams on their schedule, I feel like, this year.
There are, and it's just hard to get a read because I mean, Lane Kiffin has just navigated like games. It's just he lost at home to Kentucky, and he also beat Georgia at home. He's a hard guy to like. This Ole Miss team, I think we're all kind of saying it's a step back year, but how much? Because they've won 10 games in 3 of their last 4 seasons. Like 22 was a step down. They went 8-5, but I don't know. Like they were 8-4 in the regular season, and this schedule, you could tell me they go 8-4. You could also tell me they go 10-2. I mean, they're going to be right there. I think the margin of error is so thin, but I do think losing Walter Nolan and Princely and a lot of the key defensive players from last year. I don't know what Pete Golden's got up his sleeve with the Rebs this year, but I don't know. I will say this about the Rebs schedule. They kind of got hosed, and whoever was doing their out of conference scheduling for them this year, because they get maybe the best G5 team this year outside of maybe Boise and Tulane at home. Like that's going to be dicey. Washington State, wild card situation there with Coach Rogers coming in with all of his South Dakota State guys. Like, I don't know. They like that could be a spicy game, like not one to overlook for the Rebs, but I don't know. I went back and forth on a lot of these different games for them, but what I came down to was South Carolina, because South Carolina, they get it home on November 1st. There's a scenario where, let's say they lose to Georgia and one other game.
And LSU.
LSU. They beat South Carolina. They still get Florida at home and at Mississippi State. That's a 10-2 team. Like they're still, I think they kind of need to take care of business. That could be a CFP playing game for those two teams, or a stay alive game. Like both teams really might need to win that game to remain in the CFP hunt. I think it's that one. I think that's one that a lot of folks are not circling right now that might be a top 15 matchup by the time it comes around. Like I think there's all kinds of possibilities for that to be a humongous late season ball game here in the SEC between the Rebs and the Gamecocks. I would not be surprised if South Carolina Ole Miss is one we're talking about this fall. As man, I cannot wait to see how this goes, because whoever wins, I think might be a CFP team.
Yeah, it's crazy. I feel like I'm looking at everybody's schedule, and it's the same couple teams keep popping up. It's like South Carolina or Florida or Oklahoma or something. Like some of these teams that they could have 3-4 losses by the time they're playing some of these games, or they could be top 10 matchups by the time some of these games are coming around. It's I also see you have no respect for Dell McGee and the Georgia State Panthers. They got to open with the Thurs week 1, sir. Don't sleep on that one.
I think it's going to be fine. I think they'll be all right, man. I think they'll take care of the Thurs. No offense to the Thurs, but I don't think so. Mississippi State. Who do you got, Matt Green?
Mississippi State, oddly enough, I think because of how the schedule works out, I think Tennessee might be one of their biggest
We agree.
games. That's what you had on the yours?
Yeah.
Because I think I don't trust Mississippi State to go on the road and really, beat anybody. I think they could be improved. I know you're higher on Blake Shapen than I am. But I think your opportunity to beat a ranked team at home is got to be when the Tennessee Volunteers come to town. And, who knows? Maybe they're looking at a 4-1 start or something if they can somehow upset Tennessee. And then also the Egg Bowl at home this year. And that's always a massive game for them.
Yeah, we'll see on the Egg Bowl part of it. I think that I ran it at nauseum about what they've done to the Egg Bowl. What was once a perfect timeline and perfect spot on the college football calendar has been moved to just getting lost in the shuffle on Black Friday. So I don't care about the Egg Bowl like I did Matt Green. It was a Thursday night delight. It rhymes. Being back home in Atlanta, getting to
it rhymes.
Thursday night delight.
Oh, I think you're talking about Egg Bowl. Okay, go ahead.
Night delight. Come on, stay with me, Matt.
All right. It was. And I feel like whenever it'd be around the time I got home from wherever I went on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it was just right there. It was there to welcome you when you walk in the door.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you, Ben. Friday, I don't hate it. I don't hate the Friday at noon too. I was trying to tell you that noon slot on Black Friday is prime football watching time. But yeah, it'll still be fun. Mississippi State. How many in a row have they lost though? They think Mississippi State needs to get back in the win column.
Well, that's the other thing. Did you know? I think Mike McIntyre is like a defensive analyst for them, who was formerly the FIU head coach, and obviously was really successful at Colorado many years ago. Now, he actually got them to the same kind of promise. But yeah, he's a defensive analyst for Mississippi State. I wonder if he ends up sliding into that role, because I think he'd be really good in that spot. And I think Mississippi State really needs an upgrade at defensive coordinator. I think they'll be fine offensively. Like you said, I'm a big Blake Shapen guy. I think he's one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the SEC this year if he's healthy. So I think they'll go as far as Shapen goes. But I also think they have a really good 2-headed monster at running back. I think they'll be able to run the ball pretty well with Levy and company this year. I would not be surprised if the offense is much improved down there in Stark Vegas, Matt Green. But I think it's Tennessee too, because I think Jeff Lebby doesn't have to go to a bowl game this year. But I do think Mississippi State has to show that, like, we're making progress here, and that this is not a disaster situation, that there is proof of concept a little bit. Like, you need to go 4-8, probably. Mississippi State has different standards in the like. I understand Mullen got number 1 in the country. It's just a different era. Now you got Texas and Oklahoma in here. It's only getting harder for Mississippi State in the football side of things.
That being said, some games though.
Yeah, I mean, that being said, I think Arizona State at home, you could throw me. That one's a big one for them, because I think they played Arizona State pretty well, and Blake Shapen played well in that game last year. So I would not be surprised if that's one that Mississippi State's in, or they might just win outright. Like, that game at home, just circle it. I'm not predicting Arizona State to lose that game yet, but I think that one, it would not surprise me. But I think it's Tennessee, because there's the history with Heupel, obviously, and Levy. But I do think that's the one where Tennessee and Heupel have just really struggled, obviously, in one stupid road game. Last year was Arkansas. It might be Mississippi State this year. And if you upset Tennessee, let's say that happens, like, it doesn't really matter if you go 4-8 or 3-9. Like, that's a huge win for them. So there's only, I mean, you look at the schedule, like, Matt, this is not great. They open at Southern Miss. Like, Charles Huff's there now. Like, Southern Miss, I mean, he just won the Sun Belt last year with Marshall. and he took a lot of Marshall guys down there to Southern Miss. So that's not a gimme for Levy and company. Arizona State, like I said, Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame in Notre Dame last year.
Yeah, Arizona State is like kind of like Notre Dame, Arkansas. It's like that's going to be one of those that a little win-win situation for the SEC fans. You know, if they win, you're like SEC. That's what it's all about. They lose, you're like, well, yeah, that's our worst teams. That doesn't mean anything. So
I will say too, if they don't
win-wins.
win, if they don't upset Tennessee, I mean, are they going over in the SEC this year? I think it's their best shot.
I mean, it's very possible. Also,
they don't get Vanderbilt, which is tough.
Respect to Mississippi State, they beat Ole Miss in 2022.
Yeah,
but they've won. They've lost 4 of the last 5. So Lane Kiffin is 4-1 in that.
Did they win any SEC games last year?
Mississippi State they went 2-10. No, they went 0-8 in the conference, 1-7 in 2023.
So if he goes, let's say this, if Levy goes 0-8 again in the SEC, do they fire him? I think they fire him.
So beat Arkansas 7-3 in 2023.
But that wasn't Levy.
I think they only have to win. I mean, if they win 2 conference games, like they're.
I think he's okay with 2. But have you seen they don't get bandy? Like they don't get the bad teams in the SEC this year. They only get good teams. No, and they're out of conference games. Like I said, Arizona State at Southern Miss, Northern Illinois at home. I mean, these are not gimmies.
No, there's a good chance that at the time they play their SEC opponent, that 7 of the 8 will be ranked. Honestly, it's possible. Yeah, I guess outside of Arkansas, literally every team they play could be ranked at that time.
And they don't even get Arkansas at home. That's a road game. So it's like that's a game you needed at home if you're Mississippi State.
Yeah, that's wild. And then Arizona State, that's a potential playoff team. They
probably honestly
play
like
the most
Levy goes
potential
if he goes 0-16 his first 2 years in Starkville, like you can't sell that. Like there's no way you can do that. 0-16 in the SEC your first 2 years, you can't do it.
They could legitimately play. I mean, they could legitimately play 5, but they could realistically play 4 playoff teams next year.
100%.
If it's Arizona State, Georgia, Texas, and then one of those other ones, if it's Missouri, A&M, Florida, even Ole Miss, like
Tennessee.
Yeah, I didn't say Tennessee. No, they were a playoff team a year ago. But yeah, I mean it's. I don't know that the SEC gets 4 ends. That's a tough thing, but they could easily play 4 playoff teams next year.
Final 2 here, Matt Green.
Also,
LSU.
The last things.
Oh yeah.
I know we need to wrap up, but what's the thought in Knoxville if Mississippi State beats Tennessee? Is that sky is falling type stuff? Is it Heupel might not make it to 2026 type stuff if that happens?
No. It would just be ugly. It's just more of like, oh, CFP is not happening and they're going 8-4 type deal.
Yeah. They need a big win if they lose to someone like Mississippi State.
But I mean, again, like Heupel's lost 1 home game in 3 years. I just think they have a safe floor. Now, if Mississippi State tripped them up, I mean, remember, they lost to Arkansas last year and they still made the college football playoff.
If Mississippi State were to beat them, though, what they'd be like 2-2, probably 3-2 to start the season. I don't know. I think the noise would get real loud at Knoxville, sir.
I don't think so. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I will say, let's move forward to LSU. Final 2 here, LSU and A&M. LSU first, though. Who do you have as the toughest game for them?
LSU Tigers. I think the most important game of their season is Florida in week 3, because I mean, for one, the Clemson, like you can have the non-conference loss that doesn't affect the conference schedule, conference standings and everything. They have 5 consecutive 0-1 starts, so to have a 6 consecutive would just be insane. So maybe Clemson is more important just to end that streak. But I almost feel like with the hype that's around Clemson, you go into Death Valley and the other Death Valley and lose by a touchdown or something. There's no like shade on that. On maybe potentially the preseason number 1 team. Like a lot of people are talking themselves into Clemson right now. I think they're going to be at worst preseason number 5. So you lose to them week 1 on the road. I don't think there's any shame in that. But you lose to Florida, you're starting 1-2. Your season's basically over by mid-September. I think obviously it's not true in the 12-team playoff, but it feels like if you have 2 losses that early, I think the Florida game will just be so massive because I'm kind of assuming they lose that Clemson game week 1.
Yeah, I think it's Clemson because they just can't start well. Like that's the thing about LSU. If I think they're a playoff team if they beat Clemson. I think that's their season in terms of whether or not they're a CFP team or not. Like it's brutal that they keep running into these for opening games. They need to stop doing this to begin with. Like stop doing these big.
Fairness, USC wasn't any good last year.
I mean, I'm not disagreeing, but it's still just there's something off about them playing these primetime, big time opening week games, and they're not going to be favored in this one. They're going to the other Death Valley, but I think that's winnable. I think LSU has the talent to beat Clemson in Clemson this year, but
for sure,
if they don't, like I said, the schedule is not kind. Like they need that buffer to make the college football playoff. Like I don't think people keep putting LSU in, and I'm like, okay, are you saying they're winning or losing to Clemson? Because if they lose to Clemson, you're telling me they lose one more game of Florida at home, at Ole Miss, South Carolina at home, Texas A&M at home, at Alabama, at Oklahoma, Arkansas at home, and even at Vandy. Like you're telling me they lose just one more after that. I don't know. I think that's 2 more losses there. So I think this is a 9-3 team if they don't beat Clemson. I think it's a 10-2 CFP team if they do. It's the season. Like they're the only, like, I think there's a lot of hyperbole of like, oh, it's just week 1 to survive, whatever. Like Ohio State can lose week 1 and be just fine. LSU loses week 1. I don't think even Clemson, if they lose week 1, they're still going to be fine in the ACC and making the CFP and everything else. They can lose that game. I don't think LSU can. I think LSU has to flip the script and they're opening just nonsense, but they also have a huge transfer portal class. Like, I don't know if that's reasonable. Like they brought in Nick Anderson, Barryon Brown, Peyton from Florida State. And they also brought in Florida's second or third edge. I forgot his name off the top of my head. So they brought in 2 edges there from Florida and Florida State. But you bring back Harold Perkins, who missed a lot last year because of injury. Like there's a lot of new faces outside of Garrett Nussmeier. Like your tackles are gone. Will Campbell off the NFL. A lot of turnover, and they're going to be expected to win week 1 in a place where, I mean, there's people talking about, like Josh Pate talked about, like why Clemson might be his national champion pick because of how many NFL draft picks they have on this roster for next year. So I don't know. I think it's at Clemson for LSU. They have to win at Clemson.
Yeah, and if nothing else, you're playing a team in week 1 with like some of the most returning production in the entire country. So they're at least more of a finished product week 1 than LSU probably is. No, I think that's interesting. And also when it's for this reason, this game and the Ohio State Texas game are just massive kind of narrative games. And unfortunately for us in the college football world, like that is important. And that could be the difference between the SEC getting 3 teams in or getting 4 teams in is, if you have wins over the Big Ten champion and if your best team would beat the Big Ten champion or your second or third best team beat the ACC champion, like those kind of games could matter in an at-large scenario late in the season. So, no, I think that's fair. I think I personally think Clemson wins that game. Not that that's a lose. It's not that it's not a winnable game for LSU by any means. But I think Death Valley at night or LSU, Baton Rouge, Death Valley at night, week 3 against Florida is just going to have that SEC feel of like a do or die game. And we'll see what happens.
For sure. Final one, A&M. Who do you got?
A&M, I'm going to go Notre Dame in week 3 because I think there's a legitimate shot. If A&M beats Notre Dame week 3, this team could start 7-0. And this schedule is not bad. So they played at Notre Dame week 3. Notre Dame, this was obviously a rock fight a year ago in College Station. Notre Dame's, breaking in a new starting quarterback. We'll see what they're made of in week 3 that early in the season. But like, it's not the most difficult schedule in the world. Like you get Florida at home, that LSU game later in the month of October. I feel like there's a good chance if they can just get past Notre Dame somehow. And I'm a believer in year 2. Mike Elko in year 2, there's just lots of times there is a bump, especially when you kind of find some continuity like they did with Marcel Reed a year ago. So if they can somehow go into South Bend and get a win in week 3, I think this team's going to be at least 1, 2, 3, at least 5-0 when the Gators come in to College Station on October 11th.
Can I just perpetually sell A&M stock until they actually prove anything. Because you go through it. Would you like to guess how many double-digit win seasons A&M has this century, Matt Green?
I know Johnny Football had one. I know Jimbo had one.
Jimbo did not.
Did they only go 9-0 or something?
They went 9-1 in 2020.
But that counts as a double digit.
No,
season.
it doesn't. We don't know. You can't throw that in there.
They played an all conference schedule. Throw in some cupcakes. They're a double digit win team.
Can't do it. So last year too, last year they were an AP preseason 20th team. Mike Elko goes 8-5. Jimbo's first year 9-4. Followed that up 8-5. Kevin Sumlin is the only the first year in the SEC was the only year Texas A&M has won double-digit games in the SEC era and also the 21st century for the Aggies. He went 9-4 in year 2. Mike Sherman went 4-8 to 6-7 year 1 to year 2. Dennis Franchione 4-8 to 7-5. R.C. Slocum back there in the 80s in the SWC, the Southwest Conference.
Slocum, that wasn't the 80s, that was the 90s.
No, Slocum started. His first year was 89.
Oh, okay. So yeah, he was the 90s. He's the one that actually won the Big 12 that one year with that win.
But I mean, he kind of dominated the 90s. 9 wins, 10 wins, 12 wins, 10, 10, 9, 9, 11. Slocum is unquestionably.
Was it 98? Yeah, that's the year they won the Big 12. And College Football Hall of Famer, Dat Win, part of that team. Dallas Cowboy great.
There you go. A&M to me is still, everyone's going to, like you just did it, the schedule, it's going to be nice. Like A&M, it's time for A&M. When is it never not time for A&M? Because they recruit well enough for it to be time for A&M. Like like Marcel Reed, we'll see. I think we talked about it. I think he's still in the mid category right now. I wouldn't put him in the top end. I don't think he has top end potential, but I also don't think he has bottom potential. Like I think he's going to be somewhere in the middle for the SEC. Yeah. Colin Klein, good OC. Mike Elko, good DC. Like they're doing most things right. Like this is just still a better transition to, and A&M fans should be excited. But like, I don't know, man. At Notre Dame, I don't think they'll win that game. I don't think they'll beat Notre Dame back-to-back years. I think Florida at home is going to be a dogfight for them. At LSU will be tough. I think at Missouri will be really tough for them. South Carolina at home, toss up. But then the season comes down to Texas, obviously, too. But I think it's at LSU because I think it's a desperation game potentially for LSU in that spot. And they recruit against the same, like that's a big-time recruiting battle thing for them anyway, is LSU and A&M. They're going after a lot of the same guys. And I think they're obviously close by, and I don't know. I think that's the one to me. If A&M wants to establish that things are a little bit different with Mike Elko and company in year 2, go win in Tiger Stadium. Go beat the Bayou Bengals down there, Matt Green. That's the one to me where I need to see to believe it, because like you're talking about, like they could get to undefeated at that point. They need to win at LSU. Like that would be a big time statement type of year 2 for Mike Elko and company. Go win at A&M or at LSU.
Yeah, I mean, if they win at LSU, I mean, I think they probably don't have more than one loss at that point, and that would be what, 7-1 or something like that. Go at Missouri.
You and I both know if they win at LSU, they're losing to Missouri off a bye week 2 weeks later.
I mean, you also got South Carolina coming in, and then you got to finish with Texas. Like it's a deep schedule for sure. But also, they went 8-5 a year ago. It always looks worse when you lose the bowl game. They went 8-4 in the regular season. Like, let's not forget, this team was a whatever they call the Texas rivalry. I was gonna say what they call it, but I don't know what the name of it is. Lone Star Showdown or something. They're a win over Texas away at the end of the season from going to the SEC championship. So like this team, they went 8-4 in the regular season. One of those losses was at a conference to a team that played for the national championship a year ago. So this 8-4, 8-5, it's I think it's a little better than just on the surface. Oh, A&M goes 8-5 every year. Texas 8-5, whatever they call them. Like I think I don't know if it gives them credit for how good they were a year ago. But obviously the way they ended it, starting 7-1 to finish 8-5 is obviously disappointing, but they still were playing with something on the line at the end of the year.
They were 87th in passing offense last year nationally.
It feels like a small improvement, though. Like, it's not crazy to think they could win 10 games. You think?
You're on your own there.
Just because there's so many teams, I'm not necessarily predicting them to win 10 games, but there's just so many teams in the SEC. It's like, I don't know.
I mean, they were
Marcel
95th
Reed-
in passing offense against conference SEC teams last year too. Like, you go through the numbers, it's pretty terrible. Like, A&M's passing offense has a lot to prove, I think, in 2025 to be a 10-win team. I don't think they're
No,
close.
that's probably true. And they definitely have to improve to get to that point. But I'm just saying, like, are you not a believer in the year 2 bump? I feel like it happens more time than it doesn't, other than the times that it doesn't happen. But it feels like it happens a lot.
Maybe other teams. It's not A&M. A&M has the talent. Like, everything, like, A&M should work. I just don't think A&M's going to work because it never works. It's Tobias Funke. It didn't work for those people, but it might work for us.
It might work for us.
That's what it just feels like when everyone's like, A&M, this is the year they break through. I'm done. I did it. I think I did it on this program a couple years ago. Never again.
It was year 3 for Jimbo Fisher. They did finish ranked 5th, and they had an argument for like they should have been in the playoff also. Like Ohio State got in, even though they played like a 6-game schedule. Like there was some weird things that happened in 2020. But that's really the one year since.
And you know what else?
Johnny
Put a bow on all of it. How many times has the Georgia Bulldogs visited Kyle Field since the Aggies had entered the SEC and won 11 games those years ago, Matt Green?
That's a big 0, sir.
0 times.
Played them in the Independence Bowl back with Joe Cox and company back in 2009. But so we played them as many times as an SEC team as a Big 12 team in recent history. So yeah, it's weird. One day Georgia will go to College Station. They already announced 2025 or the 2026 schedule, didn't they? Or is that coming up soon?
They haven't announced 26.
They haven't announced that yet.
No. We don't even know if we're doing 8 or 9 conference games next year yet.
That's true. There's a lot to be decided. I'm sure Georgia's got to be going to A&M.
You say that, Matt Green.
Schedules. I don't know. Is there any other ones that haven't happened? Like, is there someone who hasn't played at Missouri? Or I only know about Georgia, but is there has Missouri not played anybody this whole time?
I don't know.
It's like we're about to play Texas for the 3rd time. And they've been in the conference in the 2nd year they've been in the conference and only played A&M once in 13 years.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a lot of Florida Missouri memories. I don't know if they've both played in both spots.
You don't have a lot of Florida Missouri. They were in the East, so I mean they were playing every year.
I'm just thinking out loud. Like, I'm just thinking of memories of Missouri.
It would be Missouri versus someone in the West. Like if they weren't playing.
I don't have a Missouri Ole Miss memory.
I remember Bama came to them a couple years ago. Yeah. LSU, did they beat LSU a couple years ago? I think. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, Florida, Missouri. There's a few Florida, Missouri memorable ones. Like that game. That game, Missouri had like 42 points and they had like 100 yards of offense or something like that. You remember that? They beat the hell out of. I want to say it was on the McElwain teams. They took like a kick to the house, a punt to the house, had a defensive touchdown. I think it was like the craziest thing ever.
Yeah. Well, that's all I've got, Matt Green.
All right. Good stuff, man. That's even though there's no SEC East and SEC West anymore, I guess we had to divide it somehow. So I'll allow your living in the past for a little bit longer.
I want to do it. We'll figure out more themes here because preview season it's not quite preview time yet, but we're a couple weeks away, and then we'll dive into our conference previews and our projections. But we'll do the math. I'm going to put that on you, like in terms of timeline here of our predictions and everything else. How much time we have between shows to start doing these in order, but it'll be here.
Said, 5 Saturdays before week 0, so we probably Power 4 conferences. We'll probably have to start doing that at some point.
Yeah, I guess maybe Sunday we do our first Power 4 conference. Maybe that's what we do.
Yeah, man, let's do it.
Matt Green, always a pleasure, my friend, and I'll talk to you again next week.
Nicely done, nephew. The Chase Thomas Podcast. Hell yeah.